from that moment onwards, everything in my life changed. It was like my decisions at every turn modified. I didn't feel – people talk about giving up stuff to pursue a goal, giving up opportunities, giving up. It was giving to me because it was giving me my lifeblood, my life purpose, my life force.
Can I get you to introduce yourself to everyone, Kate?
Yes, sure. I'm Kate Smyth. I'm the founder of the Athlete Sanctuary here in Torquay and Melbourne. And I love working with active women who are passionate about their sport, whatever level. And I lean into a few different things. I also coach a group of women who are very keen distance runners, anything from 5K to sort of marathon. And,
what about on top of marathon? Do you have anyone that does ultra marathons or anything yet?
In my clinical practice, I have a lot of what I would call super endurance women and some men. It's not just exclusively women, but these women enjoy doing 5-day events, like back-to-back 100K runs over mountain ranges. Like they're lovers of extreme. In all things in their life, I find, not just their sport.
No.
And often they may come to me because they're not feeling quite right. For example, classic example is a lady who had overcome a cancer, a serious cancer. She was also a cyclist. She was running a $50 million company that she had started. She was running a farm and she had 4 children.
What?
Yes. And she came to me because she was tired. And I'm like, yeah, have you at all thought about perhaps pulling back on something, and these are the kind of amazing human beings that really exist in this world.
Wow.
So I feel like it's such a privilege to see into these people's lives, even if it is just a tiny window, because it keeps reminding me how incredible we are and how much capacity we have to do so much more if we choose to. These women are doing really different things in their area of passion. It might be motocross. I've got several women who are just incredible motocross riders. And if you see what they have to do, it's like you have to be on or you nearly kill yourself, like literally within 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It could be women who are trying to set the world record in their particular area. It can be, endurance riders, iron women, runners, cyclists, elite. I've got several elite AFL players.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And professional netballers. So a whole range of women who just love their sport. So
yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, it brings me a lot of joy to still remain very much in a supportive role to help these women live out their dreams as well.
So
I feel
cool.
like I had my turn in the sun, so to speak, many moons ago, and it's nice to be able to pay it forward.
Yeah, that's so cool. And do you want to explain or touch on or go through your journey with your journey to becoming naturopath? Do you consider yourself sports naturopath? Is your
yes, that's really
and
I guess
coach,
my
right?
area of interest, specialty, I guess you could say, interest, But that sort of really covers all active women and it covers a lot of women's health issues, whether that be menstrual issues. Anemia is so common in women in sport. A lot of gut health challenges as well. And I would have to say one of the most common themes I find is stress. Not necessarily around sport, just stress in life because by the pure nature of women who are trying to achieve, they're doing a lot. So naturally they don't have a lot of downtime and a lot of their nervous systems are working on overdrive. That sympathetic nervous system is kind of locked on.
Yep.
Not enough time, or perhaps allocation of time to things that unwind and, rest and digest.
Yep.
That other part of the nervous system doesn't always get much of a show in, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But I started, to answer your question, we go back. I started naturopathy through my own experiences, and I was a full-time athlete at the time, and I was a marathoner, and I loved my sport, absolutely loved it, probably a little bit overzealously, like I put everything into it. I had a dream that was to go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And I had a very short window or time frame that I felt in my lifetime I had to realise it. So I came into marathoning quite late. I'd always been a very active person. I'd loved sport at school. I did some running at school, but just, fun running with the local fun runners and for my school.
Yeah.
Nothing too serious. And I went off on my merry way working. When I was I moved to Sydney. I was from a rural area outside of Orange, country kid, lots of sheep work, real earthy upbringing, which I was really blessed to have.
Yeah.
And then I started my career and work. I then threw myself into my work, 60 hours a week. And
what were you doing for work?
Initially I was doing sales and marketing for a corporate company.
Which is, again, like that.
The treadmill, you're trying to,
That is a fantastic analogy, the treadmill.
The treadmill was the treadmill I very much so. Yeah. So my activity, my sport and looking after myself really put it, was on the back burner. And then I got the bug. I was given a wonderful opportunity to represent my company overseas. And once I'd travelled overseas once, I went, there's a whole wide world out there. I need to go and explore that.
Explore it, yeah.
So I took some time off work and travelled for about a year overseas.
Amazing.
And I ate my way literally around Europe and put on about 20 kilos. So when I came back, I feel really uncomfortable just in my skin. I felt, ugh.
Yeah.
So then I
started. And I think too, sometimes when you're eating so much, it can be like, and not maybe being super active.
Yeah.
Feel that sluggish, yeah.
And at the time, I didn't realise that I was a celiac, and I was in Italy and I was eating pizzas and pastas and all these delicious pastries every day. Wondered why I was so bloated and uncomfortable, but it tasted so good on my lips.
I bet.
So, that was a start of a bit of a process really. And when I came back, I decided to just run a marathon without walking. That was my main aim.
Yeah.
And so I did Canberra Marathon.
Amazing.
In my late 20s. And I finished and I just went, wow, that was a cool experience. That was really hard. That was very challenging. I'd probably, if I wanted to do this well, I'd really need to get a coach.
Yeah.
Learn about how to do this properly.
And how to train.
How to keep the balance, what to do and what not to do.
I mean, in our previous chat that we had, like how many Ks you have to get in a week to train for a marathon, it's a lot.
It can be. And I went into it total naivety, had no idea. So I ran a total of 30 Ks a week and the race was 42K.
Yeah.
I don't actually know how I completed it, but I did. Yeah. I think I just ran on pure air and motivation and
mental strength.
Yeah. And I think I just wanted to prove to myself that I was capable of doing it more than anything else. I didn't care where I finished.
Yeah.
And I loved running. Always have since I was tiny. Just that instinctive thing. You've either got that love for something or you don't. And for whatever reason I did. And so I completed that marathon.
Yeah.
And I met Robert Di Castella, Deeks, one of our all-time great marathoners. And he was signing autographs and I think he'd released a new book or something. Cool. I went up to his signing table and I had a bit of a chat to him and said, if someone had just finished their first marathon
Speaking for a friend.
and they wanted to be really good at this sport, what would you suggest they did? And he said, probably get a coach. Like that would be a really good idea. So you've got a system and you've got a process and a program, and you don't overtrain and you don't undertrain. Get some decent gear. I was wearing my brother's boxer shorts at the time that chafed. Like it was just really bad. Like I was just very much a beginner in every aspect of the sport.
Yeah.
So I followed his advice and I went back to Melbourne and I found a lovely coach who admittedly I resisted joining the group quite heavily because I felt like I wasn't good enough. And I had this imposter syndrome that I couldn't go to a training group. Like I'm not a runner. I just finished my first marathon. Anyway, the coach rang me and just said, look, you don't have to come all the time. Why don't you just turn up once and see whether you like it? Okay, I had this, mind saying, oh, no, all this negative resistance. And then I went, you've got nothing to lose. Just turn up once.
Yeah.
There's no hook. Just go.
You got to jump off that cliff. I think especially with imposter syndrome, it's like just jump off that cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I turned up and the most welcoming, lovely human being said, oh, great to meet you, Kate. You're here for a run too. Great. Let's do a lap of the tan together. And before I knew it, I'd done like 3 laps of the tan, chatted to and laughed and just had a really good time.
That's
and
so nice.
Those human beings that I started running with are still some of my closest friends.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And that's like nearly 25 years ago.
Wow, yeah. So cool.
What I've realised is that what is shared on a run tends to stay on a run, and there's this just level of comfort and your guard goes down so you can have these really deep, meaningful conversations.
Because you're in another zone.
You're in a completely different zone and it's a trusted space. You don't tend to run with just anyone. You choose who you run with, just like you choose your friends.
Yeah.
And your running buddies, like they can nearly save your life if you're in unfortunate circumstances. Yeah. But you also have just form this bond, because you're spending quality time with each other several times a week, year in, year out in some situations.
And I think sometimes when you find a buddy in your sport, you have to find someone that's also like somewhat at your level or on the same page as you as well, like how often you want to run, how far you want to run, like same with mountain biking, I guess. It's like that level, you need to find someone that's on the same page because there is that commitment level.
Yes.
That you guys are on that. It's like a pact that you've got together and it makes you so much stronger because you're kind of coming from the same page a little bit.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was through that running group that I started to really enjoy marathoning. And I went to the Sydney Olympics and just watched as a spectator in the stadium. And as I watched the girls come in, the hair stood up on the back of my neck and all over my body. And it was like, it was like a bell went off in my soul. It really was distinctive. That was a defining moment in my life. And I went, that, as crazy as it sounds, that's what I have to do. That is my calling. I really want to be one of those girls wearing the green and gold and running into an Olympic stadium. And at the time, it seemed like such a far away dream, like so out of reach.
I can imagine.
But it was like from that moment onwards, everything in my life changed. It was like my decisions at every turn modified. I didn't feel, people talk about giving up stuff to pursue a goal, giving up opportunities, giving up. It was giving to me because it was giving me my lifeblood, my life purpose, my life force. And it wasn't giving up. It was never giving up. It was like a switch out. Okay, Friday night drinks became Friday night runs, and deliberately so I could catch up with friends on Saturday morning again. And then we'd go out for coffee or we'd go and do something together. And we typically found that we all generally were quite motivated. We all did very different things in our careers, professional careers, but we all came together on this common ground. There was no hierarchy. There was no judgment. It was like, we're all just here because we love running. Like, what a beautiful equalizer sport is, you know,
That's so
when
cool.
you're just there for the pure joy of it. So I just kept turning up, basically.
Yeah, and it's funny because my friends that I do sports with, I like when I think about it now, I'm like, I don't really know what they do outside of it, because you're so absorbed in that, and it's such a big part of your life that
totally
that's like the center of that, and you just kind of be with each other as well. There isn't that, like you said, hierarchy and like that.
Mm-hmm.
I do this, I want this, I have this. It's like, this is fun. I like to do this. It's like a shift, isn't it?
Very much so.
Yeah.
And I think it's a space where you don't, in some dynamics, there's I'll do this if I get that.
Yeah.
Where I never found it like that. It was like, oh no, we've got to look after the back runners today because we're doing a different course and we don't want to lose anyone. The team environment in sport, even though running is seen as an individual sport, competing for a team actually really helps you lift your own performance, because you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for a team or running for a cause. And that's why a lot of our fun runs have been so successful, because people are running for that loved one who passed away from cancer, or running for that child who needs more medical attention at the hospital, or
for purpose.
For purpose.
That's so
absolutely.
cool.
And it's highly, highly motivating for all of us as human beings to have that, that core purpose.
Yeah. And how long was it between Sydney and I guess what were the next steps past Sydney?
So Sydney, I was fun running. Then I started to see improvement. And I think it's like anything, the more you practice, ideally you would improve if you've got the right coaching. And I was very fortunate. I had some amazing coaches, and I just kept sort of progressing. My times kept coming down, different approaches, different ways of doing things. I'd just throw myself at it year in, year out. I'd go on training camps up at Falls Creek. I started going to altitude in Boulder, Colorado. And I was at a pointy end where I knew the Commonwealth Games were around the corner in 2005. And at that stage, I was working for a funds management company in a fairly senior role, really long hours. And I had to it was another T-junction in life where I had to make a decision. Did I actually want to achieve that dream, or did I want to stay in this comfortable environment and let go of my dream? And I really, deep down, I knew that I wouldn't be happy if I didn't pursue something that logically probably didn't make any sense. I gave up a really well-paid job on Collins Street. I had a team of people. It was a great, really good opportunity for a young woman, career opportunity. But I approached the directors and said, may sound like a crazy idea, but I'd really like to pursue my running, and I believe I probably need to pull back on my workload and actually just go back to 4 days a week, because full-time was really creeping up to 50.
It does, yeah.
I was in the office late at night, weekends. Like it's
not just 5 days. It's not just 9 to 5.
It wasn't a clock on, clock off role.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was a great opportunity, but there was something in me. There was a dream that I couldn't ignore.
That's so cool. And that's awesome that you followed that, because I think it's really hard to
It's hard to back yourself.
Really hard with the unknown.
Yes. Yeah. Because it is a total gamble. This could work out really well, or this could be an absolute flop and I've made a mistake. But what I've learned through all that is mistakes are actually good. We're fearful of mistakes, but mistakes are actually where we learn some of our best life lessons. It may cost us. It may cost us dearly. emotionally, physically, financially, but that's where our growth really occurs. The gold gems, really.
Yeah.
Although at the time they can be painful, really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I decided that I was going to do it.
Yeah.
I was going to go in and tell them. That's what I decided. And I was really, really shocked. They said, "We think you're crazy, but we're going to back you."
Oh, that's so good.
And we're going to allow you to stay within the organisation. We'll give you a reduced role at 4 days a week, and we'll let you reverse engineer your position and employ your boss. So I got to choose who I then worked with. And who I ended up with was the most beautiful human being who was far more experienced and qualified and did the role so much better than what I could. And she taught me so much.
That's incredible.
So it was a win-win, and it was a win for the team, having a really good guide that was there and fully there for them.
Yeah, and present.
And present.
That was their dream.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I could go and have flexibility to just have a day where I could get my massages, do all the extras that are involved in high-level sport. And by doing that, it really catapulted me to the next level. And I started to run not just at a local level, but at a national level and then international level. And I took blocks of time, holidays from my work, to go and race overseas or go and train overseas. Like, I fully invested in that dream. And come 2006, I qualified. And it was my first opportunity to race at that level. And so I ran in Melbourne in the Commonwealth Games, and I was the fittest I'd ever been in my whole life. And it was a complete flop for me. Well, no, maybe not a complete flop. It was a very hard learning experience for me because I had very high expectations of how the race would pan out. And instead I got heat stroke and dehydration and collapsed over the line. I still finished, which was a bit of a miracle in itself. And I learned a lot, not only about race strategy, because it was my first international championship race. I'd only ever run fun runs or marathon, big city marathons where you can pace yourself evenly, you can run your own race, and you're really there to get the time that you would like to get.
Rather than racing against other people.
For placing. So championship racing is a lot about tactics. It's a lot about sitting in a comfortable position, knowing your strengths and knowing your competitors' strengths and weaknesses, so you can utilize that in a competitive environment. And some of the Kenyan girls had done a lot of research, and they knew that Karen McCann, who was on the Australian team as well, they knew that she could have a really mean kick. And so they were trying to wear her down the whole race, and they were surging, doing fartlek, which is when we go faster and then slow down and faster and then slow down. They were doing that from about 10K onwards, trying to blast the pack apart so we couldn't hang on. And by doing that also, I maybe found that I did find that quite challenging to concentrate. And so I missed some of my drinks. As we flew through the drink stations, I tried to grab it, and for whatever reason, I was on the outside of the pack and I missed my drink, and then some of them were knocked over, and so I'd missed a couple of really important drinks. And so by halfway I was dehydrated. And that was a very uncomfortable crawl home for another 21 kilometres.
Yeah, I bet.
But anyway, I did cross the line. The roar of 80,000 people in a stadium will do that for you. Somehow you find something else inside to just take another step. But I really just had to just tell myself, just take one more step. That's all you got to do. One more step, one more step. And I had to say that over and over again.
For 21 kilometres.
Until I finally
crossed
the line, and then I don't remember much.
Yeah.
but that experience, as I said, taught me a lot. And after that, I had to really rebuild my confidence. I had to go back and work out, is this actually going to happen? This was at the 6-year mark after I'd been a spectator. And I thought, I just had this unfinished business that I think all athletes experience when they've got this dream that they just haven't ticked off yet. Some never get to tick it off, unfortunately, and others do tick it off. You know, Ash Barty is one of the most beautiful examples of someone who retired so graciously, and some may have said that's too early, like she's got so much left in her. No, that was her decision. That was her choice. And that what a beautiful.
It was powerful.
It was powerful.
Grace.
Grace.
You can't get more graceful.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
And I think that's a mindset. Like athletes, they, like you said, there's that unfinished business. There's that goal. There is that purpose that comes into that. That once you have to get that, or you have to find that, and you'll keep going until you get it. But once you get there, it's like, well, that's me done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you have to have that. I can't describe it other than the mongrel. It's like this instinctive drive and mongrel that motivates you to get up at 5 a.m. and train. It motivates you to still do a session for 2 hours in the dark, in 5 degrees, in the rain, in Melbourne, over winter. It's this drive that doesn't shut up.
It's there. It's not going away.
So it's not like you can just say, I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah.
That is very uncomfortable. That's more painful than doing the work.
Than doing the work, yeah.
Yeah. So I had to reassess things then. I took a break and then I started training again, and I got another big setback. This time it was a major health one again, where I was training at the AIS in an altitude chamber study, and we were kept in the chamber and then we'd go out and train, and it was sort of like a 3-week block, and then you'd go away and then you'd come back and do it again the second time. And the second time we went back into the chamber, the sports scientists that were running the program and the research came to me and said, have you actually been drinking? And I'm like, drinking? Like I haven't been drinking for I don't know, at that point, 7 years or something it was. Definitely not. And they said, well, your liver enzymes are really high, and liver enzymes, if you're not aware, that they're a sign that your liver is potentially damaged and all is not well in your body. But they couldn't tell me exactly what was going on. So they said, well, you're not well. We have to sort of discharge you from the program, and we want you to go home and get well. So that decision was made for me. That wasn't a choice. It was like, okay, well, no wonder I'm feeling tired. At that point, I really had runner's fatigue, sort of like it's like this heaviness, this grind of, you go through phases of this, all marathoners do, where it's just damn hard work and you don't feel like you're making gains from your training. For me, I learned to listen to those, those big warning signs, that it wasn't just that fatigue, it was something else. But you do get used to sort of ignoring it.
Because you've got that mongrel. That
mongrel that has to override discomfort in order for you to get to the end of a race, going as quickly as you can for 42K. So you do train yourself to get used to being very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Because you kind of have to, I guess, switch off that intuition a little bit in order to achieve.
It's a fine balance.
Yeah, which I'm sure with hindsight now you're like, oh.
You have to listen, and you have to learn to listen, because otherwise you're constantly injured. But you're constantly also on the edge. So you're listening. Am I on the edge? Do I need to back off? Oh, no, that's an injury. I now need to stop. Damn it.
Kind of slaps you in the face, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and this was another warning sign.
Yeah.
So I came back, and I really struggled to find the right assessment and the right guidance and healthcare team. And so I had to just keep searching for answers because I was getting a lot of not quite sures, a lot of testing, but still not getting answers. And then I finally went to an integrative GP who was also a naturopath, and he did a whole bunch of other tests and looked at me from a very holistic perspective and really stood back and said, okay, here's the deal. You've got full on, chronic fatigue. You've got very bad liver dysfunction, your liver is just not detoxifying at all. You've got insulin resistance, even though I had an A1 perfect marathoner's diet. Like
to the T.
Didn't eat any junk food. And you wonder, what was that about? How could that possibly happen? But it does. It does. And back that time, it was around carbohydrates. We have to eat heaps of carbohydrates if you're running, copious quantities. And but I was doing that. I was burning the candle at both ends, and I wasn't as aware or fully across everything that my body needed. I just kept flogging it. Until it said, no more, thanks.
No more.
No more. The complication at that stage was I also had a disc bulge, and I needed to have some medications, that anti-inflammatory medications, to dampen down that discomfort and allow me to keep running. But there was at one point where the pain was so intense that it was like a brick wall. It was like, okay, I just can't run through this. Yeah. So unfortunately, the side effects of the medications were the liver damage as well. So there was a lot going on.
Happening.
A lot going on.
Massive picture.
A massive picture. And unbeknown to me, I was also an undiagnosed celiac that was still having volumes of gluten.
Especially to get the carbohydrates.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was this big scrambled egg mess, I'd say. And, a lot of the time I would have to go back for iron infusions. I would constantly be anemic without, it's because you're running, I was told. It's because you're running.
Yeah.
Without the investigations confirming it was because actually you're not absorbing.
The nutrients.
The nutrients, and your gut lining is really, and your villi are not healthy at all. So we had to take a massive step back. 3 months off running completely. I was allowed to walk. And the first 24 hours, or 48 hours actually it was in a darkened room. So it was sensory deprivation, so that my body could just go into a place of safety, because it was on total overdrive and catabolic. So I was dissolving my muscles. I was dissolving my own tissue, and I was in a really unfortunate spin that wasn't looking good if I headed in that direction.
Kept pushing.
If I kept going. So I had to surrender. The Surrender Experiment, what a beautiful book that is.
Incredible.
But I really had to surrender to letting go. So I went to bed for 48 hours. Wow. And coming out of that little cave as such of the bedroom meant that even just that small amount of time allowed for a shift, a micro shift, but it was a shift. And it must have been at all levels, cellular, energetic, emotionally, because I'd let go. I could just start healing. So I followed a very wise, beautiful man's guidance to getting well, and I did it the natural way. I had a completely whole foods diet. I did not have one thing out of a packet, like not one thing, not even a milk of any kind, a packaged milk, not even a plant-based milk, nothing. I just ate real food, and I prepared all of it for 3 months.
Wow.
And
that's dedication.
Yeah.
I guess it's that mindset, same with running and training. You can't skip anything. You've just, I guess, diverted that
attention. Yeah. But I'd really trusted instinctively. I knew that's what my body needed. It was going back to ground zero. It was going back to the building blocks of life that I'd grown up with. We ate our vegetables out of the garden. We grew our own, our meats, our vegetables. Everything. So it was just returning to what I actually knew.
Yep.
And I knew what was right for my body. So although initially I think with any change, especially with nutrition and diet, we can have these little inbuilt patterns that say that's too hard or, oh, I don't like that. But if we actually try, it's actually not that bad and it's easier than what we ever expected. So having real food actually made me feel so much more energized, without anything that was dampening down my taste buds, without anything that was slowing down my energy systems, with all this beautiful, nourishing, rich, colourful, rainbow, food that kind of sung to me almost, eat me, pick me.
Yeah.
And I started to just feel really nourished and I started to repair from the inside out, literally. And so I started absorbing my food better and sleeping better and my brain function came back. My repair, my muscles started to feel better. They weren't tense anymore. They were relaxed. I felt up to walking. I was able to then start doing walking sessions, not running yet, but walking sessions. And then I transitioned from there back to a base level of training. And I'd had to cancel a race overseas. So I decided to switch that into a get well holiday.
Incredible.
That was cool because that was like a tipping point. That was like a reset. Change of environment is always good for a reset as well. Atomic Habits is one of the best books I've ever read.
I haven't read it yet.
Oh, grab it.
I know. I gotta get my hands on it.
But a lot of the pearls of wisdom in that are also around changing your environment so you can change some habits and start with those little changes so that you're not overwhelmed with taking on too much. So going on an overseas holiday that I'd already booked, but I was actually just nurturing myself rather than flogging myself in a marathon seemed like a pretty easy switch out.
Totally. And the intention, it's so different.
Really different. Yeah. But I came back from that holiday feeling like a new, not fully new human, but I had really come back into myself again and I felt ready to start training again.
That's so powerful. Like that, I'm can't wait to start training compared to the, I just got to grin and bear it. I just got to get it done. Yeah. Is such a shift.
Very different shift. Yeah. But also a different perspective because you're not coming from a place of force or pressure. It's a gentle, nurturing flow where you're leaning in and going, that feels right today. I can do 10 Ks easy. Oh, that felt really good. But that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. I don't have to do 25 today. That's good. Yeah. And then slowly just build that up again. And then within 3 months, honestly, the thing that amazes me when I look back at that is that it was when I was in a really good, healthy, balanced state, it took so much less energy and a lot less time to come back up to full fitness, like the same level of fitness.
Wow. 3 months.
3 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was just consistency. It wasn't forcing. It was staying within that threshold running. So I wasn't doing high intensity sessions. I was just doing steady state running, building in my endurance again with long runs. And admittedly, my strength was endurance rather than speed. So it would be different for every runner, of course.
Yeah.
But it felt like a natural way of doing it for me. And the training program was a different approach. I had to go gently. I had to do more cross training. I didn't drop that nutrition. I maintained it. yes, the volume definitely went up significantly.
Yeah.
But I was able to kind of stay on track with that and sort of nourish my body. And I stayed on track with my testing to make sure I wasn't getting anemic, to make sure my body was still handling what I was trying to ask of it. And I went cautiously, not gung-ho like I had before. Yeah. Which was a different experience again for me, very different. But it meant come April, I had one shot at qualifying left. The end of April.
For the Olympics?
For the Olympics. Yep. My back was against the wall because I'd had this big chunk of time out, you know, and there was no point in running if I wasn't well. Like there was no point.
Yeah.
But inside of me, this little voice, this little mongrel kept saying, unfinished business. You can still do this. I turned up at this race in Japan, the only qualifying race I could do within the time frame left. It was only a couple of weeks before that door shut, you know, and I'm like, okay, it's now or never. And I turned up at that start line next to the world record holder, Tegla Roop from Kenya. She turned to me with this beautiful big smile. I hope you have a great race, Kate. And I'm like, oh, thank you. I knew exactly who she was and I couldn't believe that she knew who I was. And there were girls from all around the world who were trying to do the same thing, get their qualifying thing. Yeah. Their qualifying
and the same race. Dream.
The same dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all just started and I was at the start line and I was excited rather than nervous. I was excited. And I'd done a lot of work mentally as well, because those times when I wasn't able to do a lot of running, physical exercise, I went, I know that the mind is so powerful that you can do a lot of what I need to do without even running, without even taking a step. So I threw myself into a lot of mental preparation, a lot of meditation, a lot of visualization daily, and visualize what I wanted that race to be like. What did I want to feel? What did I want to see? What did I want to hear? How did I want to, what kind of emotion did I want to feel at the end of that race? You know, what was it? It was a lifetime opportunity. Only one.
Only one.
Only one. I couldn't have it again. Well, I didn't feel I could have it again. So it was a now or never experience for me. So turning up, I had nothing but gratitude, grateful that I was well again, grateful that I was there amongst some of the world's best in this town that I'd never been to in Nagano in Japan. Like Japan's so beautiful, and it was cherry blossom season, and it was a low-key race in comparison to a London or a New York or a Boston. And you get to run through country fields.
Beautiful.
You're still on a sealed road, but you're running through cherry blossoms and orchards, and the locals come out and cheer. And
that's so cool.
It was sweet, you know. And I went, this is me. Like, this is bringing me back to country, relaxed, welcoming people.
Back to your roots.
Back to my roots, back to what made me happy.
Well, yeah, which that journey that you'd been on with healing was coming back to your roots. And it's so funny that race is also coming back to your roots. So there was so much like symbolism or significance there for you.
Massive
by the
symbolism.
sounds of it.
Yeah. But the other thing I did very differently was I didn't put pressure on myself. I focused on the process rather than the outcome. And I really surrendered to whatever happened on the day. I wasn't looking at my watch every K. I didn't set my beeper on it. You know, I had practiced and visualized the time that I wanted to run, and I had put that time on stick-it notes and put it everywhere, like on my driving wheel in my car, on my toilet seat, on my mirror, in my diary. I set my watch to it so it beeped. Like I really program myself. That's the time I want to visualize. I want to feel myself completing that time. And that's what I really needed. And it was much, much faster than what I'd ever run in my life. Like it was really expecting a lot.
Yeah.
Really 6 minutes, nearly 6 minutes faster than what I'd ever run in my life.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, that's what I got to do if I want to make this team. It's a big ask, but
Huge.
Let's just see whether it's possible.
Yeah.
So the race unfolded and I literally felt like I was running on silk. It was the most beautiful experience I have ever had running. I felt like I was gliding. I was pain-free, effortless, smooth. The race just flowed. I got all of my drinks. I got all of my gels. I didn't miss anything. My brain was relaxed.
Calm.
I ran with others and it was like they stepped in without me even having a discussion. We didn't even have a common language, but it was like they stepped in and supported my journey as well. And there was a point in the race where, again, it was this instinctive roar that I find it hard to explain, but the Japanese ancient drums that they play around ceremony, major ceremony, is like this deepest guttural sound you can imagine. It's like this warrior instinctive drum that they play before fighting, before major events. Anyway, a man was playing that and I heard it and it made me roar. Inside I came alive. And I turned a corner and I saw my brother at this point and he was just so excited for me. And he made me laugh because he had a funny little portable bike and the seat had come off. So he was trying to ride this fun little portable bike, but he couldn't sit down. Anyway, he made me laugh, which made me relax again. And I have this thing that I've had with running where I visualize different parts of the race.
Yeah.
And for me, the finishing part of a race is about becoming Phar Lap, the champion horse that had a big heart that never gave up and always came home strong. The mongrel that no one thought had the capacity to do what Phar Lap did. But I always really had a strong affinity to that story of Phar Lap, probably because I love horses and I grew up with horses, but it was something I really, really felt connected to. So at around 35K mark, I just turned into a horse in my mind and I blocked out everything else. I just focused on galloping, literally how quickly can I turn my legs over towards the finishing line. And I would just imagine the finishing line and I would imagine just getting my feet to turn over. And as I went into that stadium and I crossed the line, I was on 2 feet. I was in one piece. I was happy and I looked up and it was exactly the time of 2:28 that I had visualized I wanted, I needed, I was going to run.
That is so incredible. Goosebumps.
I know.
Goosebumps. So powerful. Wow.
And that was exactly 8 years after I sat in the stadium. And, there's theories around how long it takes to reach your peak, at anything. But it was 10,000 hours in my case of running, 8 years of running.
That's crazy.
And it was like everything just came together in that one moment for me to have that opportunity of going to the Olympics.
Which was
a dream I had. I wasn't the kind of kid who woke up and thought, I want to go to the Olympics or I want to win a gold medal. It wasn't actually about achievement. It was about the journey, about the process, and about testing my inner strength to see whether it was possible, like just to see whether I could actually do that.
And I think you were tested so much more than what you could have ever imagined. Hey, like you probably thought, I don't know if I can like run that much or let alone live our health stuff, like work stuff, like all of it.
There were lots.
Yeah.
Lots of things, lots of challenges along the way. But I think sport is that beautiful metaphor where we are constantly challenged, and we can either lean into that and grow, or we can stay complacent and sit in that safe place and be comfortable.
Yeah. And I think it's the perfect mirror back to what you're experiencing in life. And it's so funny that sport can just mirror that straight back, and how you're feeling and where you're at and what decisions you need to make in your life as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And then how long then? So then you ran Beijing?
Yes. I ticked the dream off.
Yeah. Ticked it off. Yeah. You got there.
I got there.
Amazing.
Yeah. And look, that was a wonderful opportunity. But I've got to say, the joy came in getting there, not the day, not the race. A lot of people ask me to talk about, so what was the Olympics like? And I'm like, yeah, that was amazing.
That was great.
but it was actually what I had to become as a human being to get there, rather than the actual event.
The journey and the process.
Yes, 100%.
Which is part of that goal and part of that dream
completely
for you. Yeah.
And I was a completely different human being after than at the beginning. Mm-hmm. The connections I'd made, the places I'd gone around the world, the opportunities I'd had, so much growth that set me up for other life experiences that I didn't know were coming my way.
Yeah.
So that those sort of things, I think if we can just be grateful for every little opportunity rather than constantly chasing the target, constantly, I've got to achieve. If we don't stop and smell the roses, that opportunity to really learn, reflect, and grow is gone. Like you either capture it or you don't.
And it's funny because when you look at your two races, you look at Commonwealth Games, you weren't as present. You were caught up in the, you missed the drink breaks, like right, versus the qualifying race.
Yeah.
Such different mindsets. And I think as a person, it sounds like you were in such a different space for both of those. And it's kind of symbolic to before versus after.
Yeah.
And who you were in both of those. And that qualifying race sums up all the work that you had done. And it just unfolded and manifested in such a beautiful way. That's kind of like the cherry on top, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so after running Beijing Olympics, which is incredible, I love so much because I think so many people look at people's journeys or athletes and go, the Olympics, it's that thing. And people are so focused on that. But it's talking about that journey underneath it is so cool to hear when you're not in that world.
And I have to say, knowing, having a lot of athletes as friends and now supporting athletes, no one has a smooth ride. Like it looks all beautiful on social media or whatever, but behind the scenes, there are so many tears. There are many sleepless nights. There's so much frustration, so much sort of dark days. And then there's this beautiful saying a friend told me once right before Com Games. And he said, what did he say? In your moment of darkness, you often have your greatest breakthrough. And it's so true. Like often when you're just at that point of giving up, something shifts and you see something you couldn't see before that you were blinkered to. That is like a key that unlocks you. And that's what you need. But sometimes you just can't see it for yourself.
Yeah. And it's what we were discussing before about coaching is sometimes you either, again, make that choice. It's like you surrender and you learn and you open to it, or you go back into that pattern.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, yeah, I guess after Com Games and your health stuff, you so totally could have gone back to pushing it.
Yes, and I tried.
Yeah.
Failed dismally.
Yeah. Thank goodness. Thank God for failure.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so from running in the Olympics and then Athlete Sanctuary, what happened? But did that healing journey then spurt you into the next chapter?
I had a complete sideways deviation that is more about life than anything to do with running. And I was in a really challenged place in my life where I lost 3 family members, including a daughter who was stillborn within, thank you, all within months of each other. And it was a little bit like, if I could liken it, a little bit like my spiritual forest, like those wise old trees that I leant on to that stage of my life were wiped out and I had to start again. So that, whilst that was something I would wish upon no one, it was probably one of the harshest wake-up calls that I had and I possibly needed to reset my compass and to really understand the value in life. Because up until that point, I thrived on achievement. I'd grown up in a society and an environment that rewarded achievement rather than the person, rather than compassion, rather than love, rather than fulfillment, rather than joy. It was around being on a podium, winning that, that scholarship, getting that grade, and that was all I knew. That was the environment. It wasn't wrong. It was just where I was and the experiences that I'd had in life. No matter what I did, that was my comfort zone, was achievement. And when you lose loved ones, for me personally, I really retracted. I went back to ground zero completely in my life and went, well, achievement doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter, especially if you've lost everything you really wanted in your life, like really wanted. Yeah. It was nearest and dearest. Nothing else matters. No. Like it's irrelevant. Money's irrelevant. Accolades, they're irrelevant. Possessions, they're irrelevant. So it pushed me into a difficult, dark corner that I then had to take myself out of. And that I leant back on some of the resilience that I definitely learned as a sportswoman. I had to. I absolutely had to. But they were also very lonely, isolating moments in my life that to be honest, some days I didn't want to be here. I wanted to just go, stuff it. This is all too hard. Okay, I've had some highlights in my life, but this is a low life and I don't know whether I've got much purpose left. But something in me, again, I don't know what
the
this
mongrel.
is. The mongrel came out again.
It's always there, Kate. It's always there.
It doesn't go to sleep. It might go quiet for a while, but it came back again. But honestly, something came back and said, you're not done yet. No, your life purpose is not the achievement. It's about helping others fulfill their dream, Kate. There's another light bulb.
Yeah.
And that's where I went, it's really clear now. All the experiences I've had to date have brought me to this place now where I can give back, where I can harness all of that emotion, all of that experience, all of that time to helping others. So I went back and studied for the 3rd time at uni and did a health science degree and focused on naturopathy. And I thought, okay, I've got so much experience in the sports world. Why not blend the two and help people who want to look after their health in a holistic, natural way, in a balanced way, but are super active. They love pushing the boundaries. They are A type of personalities, and for them it's not about encouraging them or, motivating them. It's about toning them back a bit, helping them to see that a little bit less is often a little bit more, and being able to help them nourish themselves so that they don't, they can continue to do what they really, really love. So I did extra study. I did extra sports nutrition study. And then I set up clinical practice and a coaching practice, helping women who really love their endurance running too. And I do it very differently.
Yeah.
Differently to my experience. And I do it in a nurturing rhythm, a natural female rhythm way, where we don't have to be push, push, push. We go with ebb and flow. And some days we're really on the money and we go for it, and we're not afraid to lean in and push ourselves. And then other days we listen to our intuition and we go gently, today is a recovery day. We need to recover well, and we need those, instead of being grey all the time, we have some light and dark, so that when we're on, we're really on, and then when we're recovering, we're switching off, and we allow our nervous systems to rebalance. We can still maintain our social connections. We can still support our families. We still show up at work. We can still do all the things that we want to do in a balanced way, even at a high level. It is possible, very much possible.
And I think it's so cool, like looking at it holistically, because like yourself, you were doing all the right things. You were training, you were eating what you were meant to, but sometimes it doesn't work for the person.
Yeah.
And even like it doesn't work for a female either. It's and I think everyone's so different that it's so cool that you look at that bigger picture holistically, what's going on, what's the picture. I assume through lots of measurement, and you really get to the bottom of that.
I think that the guiding force has always got to be the athlete and how they feel. I love data, but I don't get caught up in data. Oh yeah, that's interesting. I can see progress. That's great. But I want to know how you feel. How did you wake up this morning? Were you motivated? Were you blah? How did your spirit roar when you did that 30K run? And some of them will say, I was on fire. I wanted to keep going for another 2 hours. And I'm like, well, I'm really pleased you listened to yourself and you stopped, because I know that you can do that. You have the capacity to do that. But they also train smart, so that they don't cook themselves, and they're learning that. Some of them are young and they're just, they're stepping into an elite field for the first time. So it's nerve-wracking. Again, that little imposter syndrome that I experience comes out. So helping them to be comfortable and knowing that's okay, that does quieten down, But if you want to be really, really good at something, you've got to turn up and show up and mix with people who are better than you. Otherwise, you stay in the little pond and you stay. That's okay if that's what you want. That there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to compete or do something to the best of your ability, you've got to be prepared to step out and put your neck out. Sometimes that will work.
Yeah.
Most of the time it won't. And you'll come back with your head between your tail between your legs, and you'll learn. But if you've got it in you, you'll keep turning up. Okay, that didn't work last time. I'm going to try this. I'll tweak it this way. That felt better. Taking that second drink at this point, that really worked. Or trying this before I run, I didn't have any tummy problems this time. That was awesome. Like, I really loved that. Or catching up with different friends to do a different running route, or, it might be a technical aspect of downhill mountain bike riding.
Yeah.
that you practice and you just go, on some courses you get that flow and that vibe. So you go to that place, you allow yourself to go there and surrender in that environment where you get the most out of yourself. There were always places where I felt like I flew, like just that feeling of freedom and flowing whenever I ran there. Certain parts of Victoria or Boulder in Colorado was one. At a deep level, it did something for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny you mentioned that, because me thinking about that, I'm like, oh, where are those for me? And there's certain runs, there's certain surf spots, there's certain mountains that I went away on the weekend to a mountain bike festival, and I was so busy beforehand, I didn't really even think about destination. And I got there and I started riding and I had a crash on my first kind of run. And I was like, oh, it kind of knocked my confidence. And I was like, oh, in that moment, I was like, oh, riding here, it's not my jam. I don't feel that, I don't feel connected to the runs that are there. And I was like, oh, I'll take it easy. I went for a little solo ride and I was like, oh, okay, connect to myself, connect to nature rather than get caught up in the mountain biking. I went to a quiet spot and that was awesome. Went for a women's ride, and then so that social side cheered me up and got me, I'm like, oh, it's another element or another side to the mountain biking. And then the next day was riding and I felt good, but I was tired and I punched a tree and just had to stop riding. But it's funny that sometimes you go somewhere and it just doesn't sit your vibe or suit your vibe, and then you'll go to other places and you're just in that flow and you're just connected and you're on, and it feels so good.
So good.
So good. And it's so funny because other people go to that place. It was up at Falls Creek and they love it. It's like they're like, oh, I'm here, Yeah. But it's so funny, with running as well, that there's the connection to the land and nature and the track and all of that.
Totally.
As well, which is so cool.
And I think often it's from those early life experiences as well. A lot of my athletes are country girls, and when they're in the country on a dirt road, they relax. And when they relax, they flow. Their natural rhythm is beautiful to watch. Their form is gorgeous, and they can run for hours in those environments where they're connecting at a deeper level. Put them in a city environment and they feel a little bit fish out of water, but they feel clunky and they feel like they have to force rather than flow. They can often struggle to find that. So for them, it's about training in the environments that make them happy, but also they have to get used to dipping their toe into city environments. They can't be in a bubble always because they have to race in a different environment.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's about that exposure, calculated exposure to still get the balance right. Rather than always having to force, oh no, that's what I have to do. That's just it. It doesn't have to be like that. You can just go, okay, Falls Creek isn't for me, but maybe, Bright is or whatever
Bright
it is.
Certainly is. Totally. And that's so interesting because, visualization would come into that as well, is visualizing how you want to feel in that environment as well, which was so powerful for you during your healing phase as well, was how do I want to feel when I'm running? How do I want to feel when I'm riding? And I think being present before you start the thing and getting into that, meditation is so great for that. And you really get intentional with how do you want to feel and tap into that gratitude. I'm here, and before that, the race in Japan, it's like, I'm here. I'm so grateful to be here with other people. Like I'm so grateful to be here with friends. The sun is shining.
Yes.
You know, I can smell the mountain air, the temperature. Like I don't even notice it because it's so perfect. Yeah. It's the little things that so can change the writing. And I think leading up, because I was so busy and in that, I think my energy was so like go, go, go.
Yeah.
That I wasn't present. I wasn't grateful. I wasn't in that mindset whatsoever. And injury occurs from that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so crazy that something so simple as a mind shift. And it's really funny because my first, I did a warm-up run and I felt so good. And I reckon I had a moment and I'm like, this is the best that I've ridden in so long. Like I feel good on my bike. I've been reading a textbook at night before I go to bed about mountain biking, and I dream that I'm mountain biking, and I haven't really been riding that much, but since then my riding's improved drastically.
I love that.
I was like, so when you were talking before, I was like, oh wow, like it's so powerful what visualization can do, and dreaming, and just envisioning what you want it to feel like. And yeah, there was just a couple of tweaks I made and I just felt so good. But then I guess that mind piece, that mental piece of being present and being there was just so off on the weekend. And it's, you know, that there's just those little things that can create those shifts as well.
And I think your ultimate progress depends on how you then process that experience.
Yeah.
You know, do you always label it as a bad course? Or do you see it from a different perspective and actually go, actually, I learned that maybe I needed to spend a bit more time grounding myself before a race, or maybe I needed to X, Y, Z for whatever reason. I think there's always something that you can learn. Like sometimes people say, oh, there's nothing I could have done differently. And I go, are you sure?
Are you sure?
Like nothing to do with the mindset or anything you could have done differently. I think there's always something we can do.
Always. And I guess it goes back to that piece you were talking about, failing and you know, coming back with your tail between your legs, because it's only failing if you give up. And I think that mindset of there's nothing I could have done, it's that moment that you're not surrendering and you're not opening and you go back into the same pattern until you learn, until it's knocking and it's like you have to learn this or you're not moving forwards, and you really have to have a look at it, because I think it gets bigger and bigger,
much
stronger
bigger
and stronger each time, and much more painful each time, which sometimes it takes that pain to make that change and to make that switch and to, you know, awaken the mongrel and within you. And what do you see most in your clinic? Like what are really common things that you see in female athletes?
Conditions, do you mean?
Oh, no, conditions, yeah.
Definitely gut health, dysregulation. And that can stem because the amount of cortisol and adrenaline and stress through the body is often then also physical and emotional. So the body's on overdrive. And when that happens, you know, our ability to absorb, break down and access mineral from our food, we can even have a perfect diet. But if our hydrochloric acid isn't sufficient and it's down regulated, we're not going to access everything that we should and could from a beautiful, nutritious meal anyway. And that also leaves a bit of a door open for other pathogens to come in. So I see a lot of dysregulation.
Yeah.
A lot of what we call dysbiosis, where there's a few too many pathogens in there, and the commensals or the beneficial bacterias that do all the good work, all the anti-inflammatory work, or the hormone production, you know, things like serotonin is made in our gut and then utilized by the brain. And if that isn't working sufficiently, I'll nearly always see a sleep dysregulation at the same time. So then the athlete isn't recovering properly. They've got low energy, yet they want to keep up, you know. And so I see that a lot and women are notorious for taking on more things. Instead of simplifying, they'll, oh no, I can do that too. I can do that too. And so they can get into a bit of a spinning top where they don't know how to pause.
I think especially athletes.
Especially athletes. Yeah.
It's like, what else can I do? How do I move forward? Yeah. And do you think that that's like a learned condition, or do you think that's something that happens with running, or
I don't think it's unique to a sport.
A sport, sorry, yeah.
I think to be honest, it's with any passion. It can be with dancers, it can be with anything.
Anything, yeah.
Musicians, anything. You know, once you go into that and you really love it and you get positive feedback from it, it's only natural that we lean more into it, often at a cost. And we don't see the cost until it's really obvious, unfortunately.
And anemia too?
Anemia is very common.
Yep. And is that usually, do you find through gut health as well? People become anemic?
A combination of insufficiency in terms of intake, absorption, and then gut health. If there's, parasites and things or bacteria overgrowths, that's going to impact the iron. But also inflammation, because if athletes are training high volumes, then there's inflammation in the body and that will impact iron absorption as well. So the anemia is very common in women. I also see it in males though.
Okay, interesting.
Well. So it's not just a female thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely.
And I guess people assume that it's very much dominant in females because of the menstrual cycle, because of the bleed.
Yes. However, anemia is coming in different form. It can be deep B12. If, for example, someone's a vegetarian and an athlete they can be very low in B12. So it can be deficiency before it's anemia. So I see a very high volume of iron and B12 deficiency, thankfully, before hemoglobin is impacted and it's fully blown anemia. But in other situations, I see athletes that are still, because of their mongrel and their drive, they are still performing not to their highest capacity, but in a reasonable capacity. But other symptoms come out, ADHD-like symptoms, anxiety that is really heightened, inability to concentrate, poor sleep, things like bruising that is random, and some people think, well, what's that got to do with it? But they're little signs that all is not well. And so it can tick along under the surface for a long period of time, potentially, years before it hits such a low that the body crashes significantly. So I've seen ferritin, which is a storage tank for iron, as low as 4 in an athlete that is still training. Amazing, right?
Wow.
Incredible what the human body can do.
And the mind, what it can overcome.
Yes.
Can't it?
That is not a good place to be.
No.
Yeah.
Totally. And ferritin on the other side can be really high, can't it? As a inflammatory indicator as well.
Yes. If there are conditions also where a individual has issues with iron and over iron absorption, then there is a genetic predisposition to conditions where they actually need to donate blood. So iron in the bell curve, when it's really low and really high, are problematic for the body because being a mineral as well, it's going to be toxic in really high levels. And that's where I always say it's probably better not to self-prescribe too much in terms of iron because it can be toxic to the body. You've just got to get that sweet spot and know where that is. And everyone's perception of how they feel will be slightly different. So as I mentioned, some athletes can still perform. They feel off, but they can still perform at a low level, while others, once it dips under 30, they're literally, on the couch.
Yeah.
And really unmotivated, really dragging their heels, and they feel like something disastrous. They get impending doom, a dark cloud. So everyone experiences iron deficiency completely differently.
That's so interesting. Yeah. And what are you doing for self-care at the moment? What's your repertoire?
I do things in moderation these days. Mm-hmm. So I may do a event a year, but it will be something fun that I don't necessarily overextend myself for. Mm-hmm. And
lights you up. And I guess it's an energy
just
giver.
A fun thing, you know, where like this year I went back to cross country running and the girls that I coach were also running. So it was a joy just to be out there with them. You know, and I was just in what I call the old bags division. I just literally roll around and finish, you know, without any performance things, you know, issues or pressure or, you know, I smile and wave the whole way around and high five people. Mm-hmm. I don't really mind, you know, what happens, but it's just a bit of fun. Yeah. So I definitely keep it active every day. Yeah. I definitely have rest days. Sometimes I feel like more of them, you know, maybe I need 2 or 3 in a row. Yeah. Other times I'm good to go and I don't need one for 10 days. And I go, okay, well, that's fine. I do a bit of cross training. I love getting on a mountain bike or a gravel bike. Yeah. Just doing a little bit. I definitely lean more to my running as my, you know.
Your love.
My love. So I modify that. I definitely walk, being by the ocean. I actually love water running. And I love doing it in the ocean because you don't need a water belt or anything. You just jump in with a wetty on and you've got enough buoyancy. People often swim out to me and go, are you okay? Like, what's going on out here? Because I'm bobbing up and down on the one spot pretty much. But
do you do that down at Jack or where do you do that?
Just down at Cozy Corner. Or Point Road Night's another good one. Point Addis is another good one where the beaches are a bit more sheltered. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's so cool.
So I don't mind doing that. And then, you know, whatever comes my way. I love, you know, water skiing over summer. And
where do you go water skiing?
My family are all near Orange.
Oh, Orange, of
course. So we've got big dams up there like Burrendong and Wyangla. So I tend to do that as a summer thing.
That's awesome.
Fun and lots of just outdoor, you know, adventuring, camping, bushwalking, just anything that gets me outside. I love gardening. I love my veggie patch. I love just getting my feet dirty and doing that every day. I feel so grounded and centered when I'm, you know, just in nature. Yeah. It's just an essential in my day to keep me balanced. I definitely have to keep space, especially when I'm working with people in a clinical practice and giving people my time, energy, focus. I definitely need more space for myself to just let go of all of that. But just to restore my batteries because my cup can become drained. Yeah. So it might mean a quiet weekend.
What are your current offerings or where are you at the moment? Are you taking on new clients or?
Yes, yeah. I work in clinic, so face-to-face, both in Torquay and in Melbourne as well. But most of my work is online because the athletes are all around Australia, to be honest, which is great because people can do it from the comfort of their own home and be flexible. It could be work, it could be after work. And I find that's good with athletes because their routine, you know, is fairly jam-packed.
Yeah,
what they need to do. It's very full.
Yeah.
And so I work one-on-one. I also run a mentoring and development program for athletes, as I mentioned, and we get together for weekend retreats. We do camps. Oh, awesome. And we keep in very regular contact, and that is very what I would call female-centric. So we lean into the menstrual cycle. We work on our overall health and make sure we're not training so our hormonal health gets impacted, for example. We're, really fueling our bodies. We're managing if there is any lingering eating disorders or, issues with absorption and things. We're onto it immediately. So it's it's very much a holistic training focus. It's not just here's a cookie cutter program, go run.
Yeah,
it's very
catered
much
to the individual and the needs of the athlete.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Some of them are really doing running because they just love it and they just want to finish a run and
feel good.
And feel good and tick that off. They're busy lawyers. They're working crazy hours and they don't have, 20 hours a week to train. Awesome. That's good. Running can be something that balances them out on the other end, which is awesome.
And I think too, it's so powerful having someone like yourself in a position that has trained and has been extremely active, because you can often see people and health professionals and they don't understand that is such an important part of like your soul. And because it's like a lot of people can be like, oh no, you can't do that, or that's having an impact on your health, rather than how can we make this work for you as well and come from a place of understanding, and how can we, get you to a place that you can do those things and those goals as well. Powerful.
And sometimes we're frequently told as athletes, I'm sure you've experienced this before, just rest. Well, if you're an athlete and you've got that drive, rest can be a dirty word when you've been told by 10 people and it's your 10th week of resting, just rest, because you want to find answers. You want to do something that will help you on that journey. And I find sometimes that's when the gems from outside of naturopathy or more, maybe it's just a holistic approach, can be what is that key that unlocks people. And often it's about, okay, you're doing everything you can with your nutrition, your training, that's great. What are you doing for your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest? Are you doing anything? Do you have a hobby? No, I don't have a hobby. How about you get a hobby? How often are you catching up with friends? Oh, I've said no to every invitation in the last month.
Because you have to rest.
Or and it's like, well, maybe you could do this a little bit differently. Maybe you could catch up with a girlfriend for a coffee on the weekend without, taxing yourself, but maybe just doing it gently and in a balanced way so that you can transition to where you want to go. And so it's those sort of parts of the puzzle that make you an athlete. One is not more important than the other, but we notoriously focus on the physical output of our bodies rather than everything else that makes that physical output possible,
Yeah.
We're really intricate, complex, amazing human beings. So why do we expect ourselves to just be on fire all the time? That's not how every part of life has a life cycle, has a summer, has a spring where it's shooting, where it's full of energy, and then it has a quieter time where it comes down to a winter, where we hibernate, where we go a little bit more gently, where we do allow some recovery time, whether that be a couple of months off, whether that be going and doing something a little bit different, just to keep us fresh. I think all of those parts of what make us an athlete are really, really important.
Yeah.
Essential. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. And what have you got coming up? What are you working on at the moment?
I've got a little love project, a heart project, which taps into what I mentioned before. Losing my daughter Holly really, as I mentioned, was a very difficult thing and a very isolating experience. And I really feel it's part of my life journey to help other families and other women to transition through that unfortunate experience in life. So I have gone back and retrained as a celebrant.
Incredible.
And my focus for these next 12 months is to really focus on supporting families and women through that transition as a celebrant and kicking off that celebration. We're still learning how to do it well, I think, in a Western society. And it has improved. It is improving, but I still feel like sometimes it's a bit of something we don't feel comfortable talking about. And I think we need to have these open conversations so that women and families, also fathers, don't feel isolated in that grief, and that through that grief they can form other connections. They can get that vibrancy back that grief can take away for a period of time. So I will be stepping into that and doing life celebrations and, services for families as well, just on the coast.
Yeah.
And that will bring me a lot of joy, just knowing that's the gift that I can give through an unfortunate situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And do you have anything going for that yet, or do we stay tuned?
I literally got my registration this week.
Incredible. Congrats.
And so I can do marriages as well. I will start on the services first, and then lean into the weddings as well. But I'm literally getting my website going.
It's very exciting.
Getting it going.
Cool.
So I've got to put, I've set
once it's all together, let me know, because I'll put it in the notes so that if people ever come back and listen, then we can put it in, and
thank you.
It may have manifested, and who knows where it'll be at.
Yeah.
How exciting. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me, Heidi.
Such a good chat. Yeah. We always have such good chats. It always pains me to cut them short. So thank you.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
If you are watching this, it means you've made it to the end of the podcast, and I'm so blessed that you've chosen to spend the time here with us at Extremely Well. If you liked what you saw here today, and I'm hoping you did if you're here at the end, can you please hit that subscribe button, hit the follow, leave a review, tell us what you liked, what you didn't like. This is all for you. So we want to make sure that we are serving the community in the best way that we can. If you want to connect with us through our other channels, I'll leave them down below in the description box, and I can't wait to connect with you next time.